Welcome back to another episode of Operation Evil. This is episode 96, titled Blanchie's Truth, featuring Dee. Dee will join us later in this episode. We already recorded with her, so we'll be patching that in. I'm your host, Nyoka,
I'm Rachel.
and this is Rachel's episode.
This episode is deep. They're
It
all
is.
deep, right?
It is. But this one's a little closer because
Mhm.
we have a connected person to the story. So,
And let me just clarify. So when so first I'm going to tell the story that's according to research that I found according to newspapers. So some of this stuff may be different and you may hear the clarification or no, that was wrong. Or yeah, maybe that was right. You'll hear that later in the episode from
mhm.
Dee. So I just want to reiterate here that this is just newspaper research and don't always, you know, I shouldn't say that because mostly what we use, is research. Just cut that out. That's fucking dumb.
No,
I
it's
don't want
not.
that.
No, because I got something to say about that.
Go
I
ahead.
think what you're also trying to say is one, your research was confirmed or denied by our guest. She was able to
Right.
clarify a few things. Two, we will always have our resources listed in the
Listed.
show notes if you have any question on where we got that information. And I always, and you guys know this if you're a listener, whenever we find conflicting information, we will tell you we found conflicting information, but all of that information is always provided in the sources for you to personally go to and check it out. Some of it's on newspapers.com and you need a subscription, but the article will always be listed, the title, what paper it came from, who wrote it, links, like all those things will always be there. So,
I think what bothers me about it is that, newspapers, you're supposed to be able to, it's supposed to be a reliable source, right? But we know that it's not always the case.
right,
I think
right.
that's just what really bothers me.
Especially old cases and
Right.
and
Mhm.
in police work and journalism, it was just different a
Mhm.
long time ago. And I think we've just grown as a society on how we report and how we investigate, and we've improved since then. So there will be some misinformation that you will find from times like that.
And remember, this is not about, it's never about the person. Like, this is not about Lawrence Dalton.
No,
This is about the family. This is about Blanchie. This is about her family and, other victims and things like that. So,
he's the monster in the story, but he is
hell of a
not the
monster.
story.
Yeah. But here's some background info on him, just to kind of, I guess, and that's the thing too, is like sometimes people think, why do we need to know about them? I mean, it could be just a background story about why the way they are. It could be just a little bit of understanding. Sometimes,
About the bad
the
guy,
background, right, right, right.
I think we all
Sometimes,
have that curiosity in general. I mean, we
like,
just
why are
do.
they the way they are? But
Yeah.
sometimes they could be, great parents and they're just a shit.
Yeah. And sometimes we need to know that horrible people are out there that can do horrible things and not to be naive and don't be nice. You don't always have to be nice to people. And that is definitely a problem that women have had is being afraid to, you know, not be nice and say something proper. It's okay to be rude, especially if they give you the creeps.
Okay. I don't know what happened. We lost connection or
I
something.
wish I had all the videos of your technical difficulties because it would be hilarious to combine and put out there.
Like, I don't know if my internet dropped or if it was yours, but I'm thinking it was mine.
It was yours. Mine was fine.
That was for you, only you. You fucking leave that in there.
I
I'm
will.
gonna, I'm gonna, I was gonna say smack you, but that's not nice.
You can smack me. It's all right.
Smack you around. You want to talk about Lawrence Dalton now?
Yep. Let's do it.
Okay. Now, you will hear Dee later on. She will say that Lawrence was referred to as Larry, which of course is short for Lawrence, and also Bill. And I read that Lawrence hated his father so much that he like wanted to go by Bill. Like he didn't even want to be associated with the same name as his father. But anywho, Lawrence Dalton was born in 1945 in Chicago, Illinois. And his father, the reason why he didn't like him or hated him was because he was abusive. And he was an alcoholic. It was said that his mother would buy his father alcohol over buying the kids food. And it was also said that Lawrence's sister didn't want to have anything to do with her brother. Like, he was an embarrassment to the family and could not believe the things that he had done. And the mother, Lawrence and, the sister's mother, was kind of in and out of Lawrence's life. She was like helped him at one point with the kids, which I'll get to a little bit later, but mostly she, from what I read, she kind of stayed away from him, and she lived with the sister, with Lawrence's sister. Around 12 years old, when Lawrence was 12, he spent some time in a boys' home. He was a truant and he had about an eighth grade education. He would get like in some minor trouble, and like he felt like that the school just didn't want him. Like, I guess maybe they were just looking, he would get in trouble, and, the school was just looking for a reason to get rid of him. As a juvenile, there's not like a record of like how old he was, but just that he was a juvenile, that he was arrested for theft. But as an adult, he was never charged or arrested for anything until much later in, like, I think it was like 1977 or 78 maybe. At 18 years old, Lawrence got married for the first time, and he was quoted to say that it is uncertain how many times he had been married, but he knew of at least twice, and he knew that he had at least four children, possibly more. And I think the reason why he was saying this too is because it was reported that Lawrence would have frequent blackouts, or he would have trouble remembering things.
I was gonna say, like, how do you be like, oh yeah, I've been married at least twice.
I think.
I think I've had a couple wives.
He's just a monster.
Yeah.
Now, this is the the people that you'll hear Dee talk about later on. You'll hear these names. In 1976, Lawrence, and I'm going by, there was this timeline that was created in one of the papers. So I'm kind of going off of that timeline. In 1976, Lawrence married Karen Rugg, and they had a girlfriend named Barbara Filipsky. And so Karen, Lawrence, and Barbara had a poly relationship, the three of them, and there was other people that were involved in this relationship. And one of those people was a person named Kathy. In 1977, Lawrence met Blanchie Penna, which we know, is clarified by Dee, that Lawrence actually met Blanchie and the Penna family much sooner than this. Blanchie was Kathy's sister. Now this right here that I'm going to talk about, this will probably, according to what we talked to Dee about, this is bullshit probably. But it was reported in the papers that Blanchie would hitchhike. That's the second time I cannot say that freaking word, from her home to see Lawrence. Now, like I said, in future conversation, you will hear that I don't believe that that happened. What do you think, Nayoka?
No, I don't think she was interested in that sort of way at all.
No.
At least that's
Now,
how we take it. Yeah.
right. Now, in 1977, this is like August 31, supposedly, allegedly, Lawrence picked up Blanchie from her house to take her to the unemployment office, while Karen and Blanchie's sister and mother, Karen, took those two to the welfare office. Later that evening, Lawrence claimed that he didn't know where Blanchie was and that she left home because of a fight. And supposedly, Blanchie's sister confirmed that there was an argument, but there would be no reason why Blanchie like ran away to be that upset about it. It was just a little disagreement.
Hmm.
Nothing's that significant. And that night, Blanchie's mother reported her missing. Now, in December of 1977, Lawrence, Karen, and Barbara moved to Brooklyn, New York. And in New York, Lawrence sought out a psychiatrist for help due to the blackouts and not being able to remember things. And I try to see, like, supposedly Lawrence said that the doctor charged him $50 and prescribed some brown tablets. I tried to look up and see if I could figure out what these brown tablets were, but I couldn't figure it out. The only thing like that I could come up with like was like Quaaludes, which was like I think a popular medication back then, but I just was kind of curious as like what was this medication, right?
Hmm.
Now during this time, while the three of them are in New York with their kids, Lawrence meets this 14-year-old girl that we're going to call M. And, also meets the mother too. And this 14-year-old girl starts babysitting the kids and things like that. So I guess supposedly to the articles, according to the articles, they kind of became acquaintances and friends or what have you. Now, in May of 1978, coincidentally, okay, I'm going to kind of go back and forth here, so bear with me. In May of 1978, a 16-year-old girl named Debbie Suzanne Baker goes missing in Chicago, okay? Police received information that Lawrence allegedly killed her and hid her body in a secret room for a week and then put her body in a trunk and then dumped it in the river. She was found by police, but like Lawrence was never charged or anything. And then Lawrence was also suspected of killing a 12-year-old Lisa Slusser. It's Slusser. So I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Lisa was stabbed to death and sexually assaulted. Her body was found about 5 miles from where Lawrence was living at the time in August of 1977. Lisa was abducted a week before, and I'm jumping the gun here, but Blanchie was ultimately murdered. Okay. Now, Lisa was abducted about a week before Blanchie was murdered. So just kind of keep that in mind, okay? I know I'm jumping around here, but just bear with me. Now, back to this little girl that was 14 years old, okay? That the three met in New York. So Lawrence, Karen, and Barbara asked permission of this little girl's mother, can this 14-year-old girl move with us to I think they went back to Wisconsin to help out with the kids or whatever. And the mother gave permission, said yes, she can go with you. Now, at some point of time later, the 14-year-old's mother was told that, again, we're going to call her M, that M didn't want to come back to Brooklyn. And M was told that her mother put all her children in a foster home and that she didn't want her back. Now, her mother did try to file a police report with Brooklyn police, but they said there was nothing that they could do because she gave permission for Lawrence to take M. Now, M was being sexually abused, and it was said that all three adults were abusing her physically and sexually. A neighbor had witnessed seeing M with a black eye and remembers after Christmas that year, like not ever seeing the little girl again. Like she would be able to go to the store and then she'd have to come right back in. I guess before she would be able to go outside and play or what have you. Because remember, she's 14. So, maybe she's outside playing with the other kids or what have you. But all of a sudden, now she's not allowed to be outside. She has to stay inside. And it was said that she was locked in closets.
Awful.
Now, yeah. Now, April 16th of 1979, M escapes. Now, what I read was that M escaped through a window, like she kicked open the screen window and got out that way. Um, Another source is that she was like locked in a closet and was able to break out of it and in that and get out that way. But regardless, she broke out of that house. She found a phone and she called her mother. And the attendant at this service station, I guess like the little girl gave the phone to the person, or the mother said give the phone to the person that works there, and the mother said do not let anyone take her. I've been looking for her for 5 months, and you keep her safe, keep her there, because this wasn't the first time that the 14 that M had tried to escape. Like, she had left several times from the home, but she was caught, like trying to call her mother for help or police or somebody. But M was caught by either Lawrence, Karen, or Barbara and taken home. And, she would get punishment for sneaking out of the house and calling or whatever. And, the it was kind of unbelievable too. Like, the police did not believe that this was happening to M. The
That's so
police finally,
aggravating.
yes. And then, at the same time, it's like M's mother is like in another city, state. Who knows if she has money or the means to she doesn't even know where she is. She's being told these lies, and she's trying to do what she can do to get her child back. The police get the to the residence where Lawrence and Barbara and Karen lived, and they find um, feces in three different closets, which indicates that she was like locked up in a closet, and it was said that she was handcuffed at times.
It's like they
And
locked her away whenever they weren't using her for something.
exactly, exactly. Like, she was just used for their games or sick games or whatever. So Karen and Barbara, they were arrested at this point. And while they were like in jail, Lawrence, he like fled with the kids. Like, he went toward like, I think he was going back to New York or something. I'm not for sure. But or maybe Illinois. I think that's where he was headed, but he was found in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, let's see, Karen and Barbara, they were charged with indecent liberties with a child. Karen was also charged with unlawful restraint and battery. And then Barbara was charged with deviant sexual assault. They were both held on like a $100,000 bond. And so I guess at least Lawrence did seek his mother to like, can you bail them out? And it said that his mother did try to bail them out, but they like refused to post bond or whatever. And I don't know why, other than they were cooperating with police to nail Lawrence. A couple days later, after Barbara and Karen were arrested, and this 14-year-old girl breaks out of this window or closet or whatever and like goes and saves herself. Police were informed of this grave of where this person was buried. And what person am I talking about? I'm talking about Blanchie. So Barbara and Karen were like, let me, and I'm paraphrasing here, but they're like, let me tell you about this. So evidently, Lawrence, I'm just going to say that he kidnapped Blanchie. Karen or no, it was Barbara. She tells police that she sees Blanchie in this bedroom and that she is handcuffed and gagged. And Lawrence wants her to go in there and talk to her. And, I guess he wants her to. Okay. It was said in one report that Lawrence wanted to have a party. And Barbara was like, I don't want to have this party. You need to just take Blanchie home. So instead of doing that, Lawrence is like, no, I want to have this party. Please go in there and talk to her. And Barbara's like, no, I'm not doing it. So she takes the kids outside. I don't know where Karen was at this point, but supposedly she takes the kids outside. She hears this loud bang, and then all of a sudden, Lawrence is seen digging a hole in the front yard, and he tells Barbara that he killed Blanchie. Okay. Now, so like, like I said, Barbara and Karen, they tell police all of this stuff that Lawrence is a sexual deviant, that he just uses these women and girls for sex, and that he is controlling and makes them do these things too to these girls, even though they don't want to. He makes them do it, or he will beat them as well. So on April, what is it, 20, hold on, like April 22nd. So this is like what, 4 days or so, 4 or 5 days after the 14-year-old M breaks out and Karen and Barbara are arrested. On April 22nd, police were advised that Lawrence was headed to New York with the four children. And this dumbass, Lawrence, he stops at a hospital in Cleveland because he's got some kind of stomach issues. And detectives, like, they get wind of this. Like, I don't know how all this came together because you know how they have like that what is it, like when the police are like searching for someone, they put that EPO out or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it was something like that or whatever, but they find him at this hospital and they're like, "Okay, we want to question you about all these things." And the detectives are like, they find it odd that while they're interviewing Lawrence, all he can talk about is John Wayne Gacy, because about the same time, like Lawrence has his trial, and then sometime later, I think in like 2 or 3 years later, John Wayne Gacy has his trial. So at this point, John Wayne Gacy has already been caught and arrested, but all Lawrence can do is like sit there and compare himself to John Wayne Gacy. This is what kind of sick fuck like we're talking about, okay?
Yeah.
Who the hell does that?
Like he was proud. Like,
Yeah, like he was
wow.
better than John Wayne Gacy, or like he was just as, I don't know, messed up. What a person to like compare yourself to.
Hmm.
Lawrence did make incriminating statements regarding Blanchie and another individual, but that name wasn't said. And I'm guessing that that would be either one of those two little girls that I was talking about earlier, the one that was found in the trunk, or the other little girl that was found close to his property. He told the police that there could have been up to 12 people that he could have killed.
Up to 12? Like he wasn't
Yeah,
sure?
yeah. Well, remember, because he has blackouts.
What caused these blackouts? Drinking? Did
Um,
they say?
no, there was never any really thing about that.
Nothing clarified. I was just wondering because it made me think because his
No,
dad was an alcoholic or whatever.
yeah. But
I
you
don't
know what?
know.
I don't remember like reading anything either that said that like Lawrence himself was an alcoholic. The
Yeah.
only thing that was really mentioned was just that like he was all about the sex.
Mm.
So yeah, that's a good point. I wonder that too, which, do we care that much? No, but
No, no.
it's a pondering question, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because he
Um,
hated him so much, it would just have been ironic if he was the
uh-huh.
same way, but worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So after this interview with the detectives in Cleveland, Lawrence was extradited to Kenosha with and charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and rape for Blanchie. And I'm just going to kind of like jump into the trial here because it was discovered at the trial that, and you will hear Dee talk about later. I mean, really, what we know is that at some point, Lawrence kidnapped Blanchie, and I might have already said this, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating, but Lawrence kidnapped Blanchie. He must have had her in the house at some point, and she didn't want to do what he wanted her to do, so he strangled her to death. He raped her and he murdered her. And then he buried her in the front yard. And then about a year or so later, Barbara and Karen get arrested. So they rat him out so that they don't serve any time. They cooperate with police and they don't serve anything. The only thing that happened to them was that their kids were taken away from them. The state took the kids and they fought for custody, They went back to court, like I think it was like 1980. They tried to get the kids back, and the court was like, "Nope, you're not getting them back. You're unfit."
Mm,
And good.
yeah.
At the trial, so Lawrence was arrested, blah blah blah, and he at the trial was like held in another county too. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I want to clarify too that this this monster was given a fair trial. The trial was held in another county, and it wasn't even announced to the press until like the jury was selected that morning where the trial was going to be, so that way this monster could have a fair trial, because the judge was so worried about publicity that people had already made up their mind like he's guilty, because of course like he was found guilty.
Yep.
And he went on to proceed to like do like appeals and shit. I'm jumping ahead again, but
They always appeal.
they always do. It's always, oh, this or that. Anyhow, during the trial, Barbara testified, Karen testified, and talked about how he was a sexual deviant and blah blah blah. The lawyer wanted to try to so like he was charged with first degree, which means like he intended to kill Blanchie. The lawyer was trying to say that Lawrence wasn't capable of intent to kill because he was a sexual deviant and a bunch of bullshit. So he wanted to like lesser the charge to second degree.
Of course.
And yeah, so I don't think that even worked. Like he was charged with first degree murder, and then he was charged with like second degree like sexual assault, I believe. And like in Wisconsin, if you are charged and convicted of a sexual, no, this was back in 78, I believe. Or no, 79. Um, I think that's when he was convicted. That okay, like if you're charged with a sexual crime and convicted, that before you serve like prison time, you have to be physically, mentally evaluated by a psychiatrist. And there was like psychiatrists that came in, for the trial as well, and it was a mixture. One psychiatrist said that he was capable of knowing the right from wrong, intent to kill, and the other one said that he wasn't capable. So, what do you say with that? It's a matter of opinion, right?
Yeah, it is at that point.
Right. So, and that was one of the appeals was that that it the psychiatrist that said that he was not capable, that the psychiatry testimony was not allowed, and that was ruled that at the time there's just not enough advancement in psychiatrist science or whatever to prove that a psychiatrist can honestly say, oh, I don't believe that he intended to kill her.
Wow. Okay.
It sounds made up, doesn't it?
It does.
So he was charged for Blanchie, like I said, for Blanchie, but he was also charged for the other little girl. Let me find her name again, because like I said, you'll hear me later on say that I cannot remember which little girl that it was. Hold on. Please bear. Okay. So it was Debbie Suzanne Baker. In 1981, after Lawrence was already in prison serving his time for murdering Blanchie, Lawrence was given an additional 70 years for the murder of Debbie Suzanne Baker, and she was 12 years old. The other little girl, let me find her name again, Lisa. There was another man who was ultimately charged and arrested for her murder. He confessed to her murder. So, I just wanted to make sure that that's those two little girls aren't forgotten too. That we know that justice was served for them.
Good.
Yeah. That's pretty much the gist of it. Like, there was appeals up until like 2005, and it's like every time that this monster goes up for an appeal, I believe that the family is notified. Just just own up to what you did and just be done. Like, how is it that from first degree to second degree, why fight it? Just serve your time and just at least show
Yeah,
some kind of like sorry, like or remorse that you did it. Because
exactly.
this process of continuing to put this through that doesn't show a damn thing.
No, he obviously, it's like he doesn't have a soul.
Yeah, and like the judge, like from what I read, he imposed like the max sentence, like 100 years plus 70 and what have you. So this judge, he had no mercy on him, which was great. And he's just sounded like a great judge. Like he was very smart and he knew what the hell he was doing. So
Good. I'm glad
kudos
that,
to him.
yeah, at least there was that.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah,
So
so this
is there any other
whole
questions that you have?
no, because I mean, you're going to hear the name Kathy a lot when Dee comes on, and apparently she just wasn't mentioned enough in these articles. So,
She
sh
totally wasn't.
and at least Dee is able to shed some light on that and bring her into the story because she is a link to it as well.
Yeah, because, she answered the questions for us like where what was the connection to Blanchie? Where did Blanchie come from? Like how did she meet Lawrence? Like and there is just some false information in there. Like
Hmm.
it's so frustrating.
Yep, and this is where we will patch in Dee, and you're gonna learn a whole lot more.
We have Dee here with us. Dee, if you just want to start talking and then what were you
Yeah,
going to
so
say?
I guess I would start with saying my mom is from Racine, Wisconsin, and she left home when she was 14 years old and hooked up with uh, his name is Lawrence Dalton. I refuse to speak his name. I call him the douchebag because
Totally makes sense.
I feel like the things that he did to women and children were so horrendous, he doesn't even deserve a name, right? So my
Yeah.
mom left home. She hooked up with this dude and was like living the hippie life in a polyamorous relationship with him and some other women. And we didn't know any of this. I have three siblings. My oldest sister is the douchebag's daughter. We suspect that my brother is also his son, but my brother refuses to do DNA for obvious reasons. I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to be his son, and I don't blame him. So we didn't know any of this until I was 23. So in 2003, I located my mom's family in Wisconsin. I was in college and I had to do some genograms. I'm a clinical social worker. And I located her family. They were shocked that she was alive. And I was like, well, that's a really unusual, that's a really unusual reaction. So I flew up to Wisconsin. I met my family for the first time, my mom's family for the first time. In 2003, I was 23. My uncle proceeds to tell me this horrific story about how my mother's boyfriend murdered her baby sister.
So
And
this uncle, was it your mother's brother?
yes, it's her baby
Okay.
brother.
Okay.
Yeah, so it really intrigued me. So I was staying in Racine at a hotel at the time. So I just went to the local library and looked up articles, and there were plenty.
Yes, I found so myself. Yeah.
Mm. And I was really shocked because my mother had never spoken of this. And finding all of this out and locating her family, I discovered that I had an older sister that knew nothing about. And so it was weird. Like, so my mom, I should also tell you, my mom has, I'm pretty sure she has borderline personality disorder, and she just lies all the time. So she had mentioned that she had another child that she had given up for adoption, but we never knew what to believe from her, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I find all this out, and I'm pretty connected with my uncle and my cousins in Wisconsin now. In fact, we're super close, and through the years, I just it comes up, right? Because it's this dark family history, and my uncle
Mm-hmm.
won't talk about it. So my cousin and I have gone down this rabbit hole many a times. We discovered that our aunt wasn't his only victim, and we were shocked.
Yeah.
We did not know that. We didn't know he was a serial killer. And I started finding out all this other stuff about him keeping a teenage girl in the closet and they abused her. And I was mortified, but I also felt like, wow, what a badass that girl was, right? So
She was.
she escaped, she told on him, she pointed him to the like where to go. And she was treated so horribly by the police, according to like news articles and stuff.
Hmm.
And
And her mother too. Like, from what I read, Brooklyn PD or whoever she talked to was like, "Oh, there's nothing we can do. You gave permission."
right,
It's
and that's
terrible.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
Um, I guess that's how police police work was in the 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's awful, and I've never been able to find her name. I've filed FOIA requests. I've never been able to discover her name, and all the police reports, it refers to her as minor victim number one,
Mm.
which is also curious and made me wonder if there was a minor victim number two
That's what it sounds
and
like.
Yeah.
Hmm.
ciphered between the two. But so
What
whoever she is,
I found that I did find, I'm not going to say her name on here, but I did see some articles with her first name in it. Did you see that?
I didn't.
I
No,
can send those to you, but
please.
I'll just say that it starts with an M.
Okay. I would love to locate her and just tell her how fucking badass she is and
Yeah.
how inspiring. Like, I mean, that's just really what she went through is horrific and she survived it. And if it
Yeah.
weren't for her, I don't know that my aunt's body would have been found.
I,
Wow.
yeah,
I
I can totally understand why you would say that too. Yeah.
I got the feeling that they kind of suspected the douchebag, but they never like had any evidence or proof that they could go on.
Hmm.
And I don't know that they would have. I mean, maybe eventually someday they would have, but I don't know that he would have ever been caught. And if anything else, if I ever found her, I would just want to thank her. And if she ever hears this podcast, I would just say, thank you so much for being a badass and giving my family a morsel of closure. You know, I don't think they'll ever have full closure, her siblings, because how horrific. I don't know that any murder victim's family ever does, but they did get a little morsel of closure and some justice. So I found all this out and it's just really shocking. So I asked my sister, she's older than me by, I think by 7 years. And no, by 5 years. I'm sorry. She's 5 years older than me. And I've asked her, do you remember any of this? And she has told me awful stories about how so let me back up. When Kathy, my mom, I call her Kathy because I don't claim her as a mother. She was never really a mom to me or my siblings. When she took off, she left my sister with her sister, the oldest Penna sister. And Larry showed up. They called him Bill or Larry. He showed up and took my sister. They wouldn't give her to him at first, and he showed back up with the police. And he had to have some kind of proof he was her dad, right? Or they probably wouldn't have given him to him. So they give him my sister. And I'll tell you that my sister and her siblings on from him, her half siblings, were in the house when he murdered my aunt. She doesn't remember that, but she does remember things like him loading a revolver with one bullet and making them play Russian roulette.
Oh my God.
I
Yeah,
read I read about
if
that.
they misbehave, he would make them also lay under tires and tell them he was going to back up over them and bury them in the yard.
Oh my
And
God.
imagine being a child and knowing that he already murdered someone and like him saying that to you. So there's a lot of resentment I have towards Kathy because she left my sister. She didn't have to go through that and she didn't have to spend so many years. Like she was eventually adopted into a great family. She's a wonderful person. She's an accountant. She has a great life. She has wonderful kids, but she didn't have to go through that trauma. Kathy took her with her when she left. We've done a timeline and we're convinced that Kathy left when she was pregnant with my brother, Coy,
Oh, okay.
which is why we believe that the douchebag might be my brother's dad. So that and Marie and Coy look a lot alike and have a lot of physical characteristics that are not present in me and my other sister. I'm the youngest. It goes Marie, Coy, Edith, than me. They look a lot alike and they share a lot of physical characteristics that look a lot like the douchebag. So we're pretty sure that she was pregnant with Coy when she left, but Coy won't take a DNA test to find out. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Now,
I
your
don't know.
aunt that was murdered, what was her name?
Her name was Blanchie.
Dee, is it okay if I kind of give what I know of this story?
Yes.
And would you be able to confirm if that's true or not? Or would you rather, I mean, you've said what you know of it. Would that be
Yes.
okay with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I knew there was another podcast and there were some inconsistencies, things in there that just were absolutely not factual.
And let me
Yeah.
just say too that we looked at this podcast and I'm just going to say it. I didn't see no sources.
Right.
Like, where
Right.
I
were
told
they? I
her,
want to see them.
I told her,
I'll be
I
right
don't
back.
know if everybody lists their sources, but we always, 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 you will always
Right.
find sources in our show
Yeah.
notes on
I've
every
listened to your
episode.
I've listened to your podcast and any podcast, like I listened to a couple of true crime podcasts. I guess in my 20s, finding all this out, I got really interested in true crime. Yeah. And so any podcast I've ever listened to always have sources, always have, and it's like the person who did that other podcast only
Mhm.
took info from the papers. Because if they had done any research, they would know that Kathy was still alive. They only mentioned her twice in that other podcast. And when I first heard it, I thought, oh my God, maybe I'm going to get some answers and know a little
Mm-hmm.
more. And when it ended, I was so mad. And I looked at my husband and told him, like, they're full of shit. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're just talking and they don't know what they're talking about. And it really made me mad because this is my family history you're throwing around on the internet and telling people, and it's not factual. And it hurts me. And maybe some of the facts obviously I wasn't alive back then, so I don't have firsthand knowledge, but I have the ability to piece together things I've read
Yeah.
and what my uncle has told me and my sister has told me. And I know that some of the stuff they said was just bullshit. And I think maybe if they read stuff like they even got my aunt's age wrong when she died. She wasn't
Oh.
24, she was 23. And I know she was 23 because I can do math, first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, because that was the age I was when I found out. And I remember sitting in the library at Racine Library looking at microfinch and thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm that age.
Yeah, it's
That's how old
wild.
I am. And
Yeah.
that leaves an impression. And when you ask Kathy about it, I don't want to talk about it. Like she will never give answers. Like my sister and I have talked about this and we decided like she will never give answers and just stop asking. It's a
Yeah,
waste of for
that's a
sure.
shame.
That's what hurt me when I heard it. I'm like, if you're going to put a podcast out there, you should at least try to get your facts straight and maybe
Yeah.
talk to the survivors. So the douchebag is up for parole next year.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he is. And I am registered as a living survivor, and I plan on being at the parole hearing.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my
there's
gosh. You have to let me
absolutely,
know how that goes.
I will. There's
Hopefully he
absolutely,
does not get released. Mm-mm.
I would be shocked if he did. And yeah, I would be really shocked if he did, but he is up for parole. I was notified when I registered a couple years back as a living survivor, and I got notified that he would be up for parole.
Oh
And I
my
don't plan on
God.
writing a letter. I plan on going and testifying and letting them know how horrible this is and how it still impacts my family
Mm-mm.
today. Some other things that were not factual about the podcast. They didn't live in a vegetable truck. That was not true.
Oh my gosh.
Did you say that the podcast said that they lived in a vegetable truck?
Yeah, they said something about they lived in a trailer where they sold vegetables. That wasn't true. That wasn't true. If it is, my sister has zero memory and she was 5 when they were caught.
Did you
So
did you read anything like that, Rachel?
Not that I recall. The only thing that I recall was that they did live in a trailer
yes.
and that there was a room that Larry had tried to build like out of wood to
Mhm.
make it soundproof.
Yes.
Oh God.
I
But
think
yeah,
that.
not
See,
I cannot believe that like about the parole thing. Like, what is the point of him? This frustrates me because like
yeah,
he got life. Like, why are you up for parole?
it infuriates me. And as long as I have breath in my body, I will always show up. And I'm looking for it now. Well, the notification. I thought it was in my I'm so sorry. My dogs are barking. They're crazy.
You're fine.
I have two big labs. Yeah, he's due this year. Actually, it's 2024 now. He's due this year for parole.
Mm-mm.
So I'll be there to testify. My sister does not want to go. She does not want to look at him or have anything to do with him.
What
And I don't
state
know
will
where.
that be in?
It's Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's in Oshkosh prison.
Yeah.
If I believe right, because I remember thinking Oshkosh bagosh.
Yeah.
I thought the
Right?
same thing when you
Right?
messaged me. When you messaged us that, I thought the same thing.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead. I'm ready for any questions you have.
Okay, so I read in the papers that Larry was a sexual deviant,
Mhm.
that, like you had said, the polyamorous marriages and things. I read that he was married to a woman named
Karen,
Karen. Berg, I think maybe was her first maiden name.
that sounds familiar.
And then there was Barbara,
Mhm.
who was like a girlfriend, and that there was about four kids, at least four kids.
Mhm.
Something that I read said that Larry said supposedly that he didn't even know how many kids that he had or how many times he had been married,
Mhm.
and that it was like around 77. They had moved back and forth from like Wisconsin's to New York, back to the Chicago area, back and forth. And that one of the times they had moved to Brooklyn was when they met the 14-year-old little girl named M, and that they got permission from her mother because she would help with the kids, she would babysit the kids and stuff, and they got permission from the mother to bring her back to Wisconsin with them. And that around Christmas time of I think the following year, the neighbors started not noticing her out as much. And within that time too, like that's when they met Blanchie. And so that's not true.
So the douchebag met my mom, and my mom ran away with him in 1966.
Okay.
So he was associated with the Penna family before that happened. That's not when he met her. That's when he abducted her.
Okay.
Uh,
So what I read was that Barbara and Karen picked up Blanchie's mother and sister to take them to like the welfare office, and
Yeah.
that Larry picked Blanchie up to take her to the unemployment office, and then
Mhm.
that's when she went missing, and Blanchie's mother reported her missing that night.
Yeah. So here's the problem I have with this.
Hmm.
My grandmother was a nurse and she retired as a nurse. So she wouldn't have been going to a welfare office. Now, Beatrice, the oldest Penna sister,
Uh-huh.
well, she's the second oldest. There was Josephine. She's passed away in the 90s from natural causes. She had some health conditions. There's Beatrice, the second oldest. Then there's Kathy, my biological mother, Blanchie, who was named after my grandmother, and then Victor, who's the youngest and the only boy. Those were the
Okay.
five and the children. And they, my, according to my aunt and uncle, they despised the douchebag and the women with them because my mother ran off at 14 to be with them. So I don't see them getting in a car with them.
Hmm.
My grandmother was also a devout Catholic, so I don't see her befriending polyamorous couples. That does not make sense. I wasn't there, but those are some facts that I think are maybe jumbled. Blanchie was going to the unemployment office. She had just lost her job at I believe she was at a preschool, and she was walking to what they call the welfare office, which is where you applied for unemployment, when he offered her a ride, and she went with him, according to the police report in Racine from the Racine police, which was filed by my grandmother.
Okay.
And then no one ever
Now,
seen her again after that.
Now, one of the reports too said that I think it was Barbara worked as and I just kind of thought it was odd. Like, why would you add that in there that she worked as a nude dancer? And I'm like, I mean, do you think that has anything to do with anything? What are your thoughts on that?
I do think that all three, Kathy, Barbara, and Karen, all worked as go-go dancers. I believe they did some sex work as well as
Hmm.
they were traveling. He would exploit them, have them do sex work. Mind you, my mother was 14, so she spent a great number of years going home, going back, going home, going back. And she traveled with them to New York, to Chicago, to all these, like Kenosha, all these places. She has said before, when I was younger, she said that she had done some stuff, some work she was not proud of. I never put it together
Yeah.
until I started digging around and was like, oh, okay, so she was a sex worker,
Do you
probably.
think do you think that because this older man was giving her attention that it was like a thing, maybe?
Yeah, her dad had just died. My grandfather had just died. She was very close with him. And I
Mm.
think that creepy douchebag found a young girl that was hurting and
Played
Hmm.
on her emotions.
played on her emotions and manipulated her and changed her life forever. I'm not giving Kathy any excuses. But she was a kid. And at 14, like my child's almost 14, I look at him and I'm thinking, holy smokes, this man,
Yeah.
like he preyed on a 14-year-old girl. He was grown. He
Yeah.
was 10 years older than her.
So
And
if
it's
she
gross.
has issues today, I mean, I can see why she went through an ordeal
Yeah, she was a horrible mom. She was never
then.
able to love anybody. She's a horrible person all around, but I can see why. And I study human behavior my whole adult life, so I understand
Hmm.
what happened to her. I can't reconcile some of my personal feelings with that, but I
Oh
understand.
yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't
exactly.
hurt it doesn't hurt any less.
Yeah.
It doesn't. In the family's eyes, they thought that Kathy was murdered too. But
Oh.
here's the weird part: nobody ever filed a missing persons on her. So if you thought she was dead, wouldn't you have filed missing persons? Like,
Right.
yeah, so there's this whole area. There's a lot of things that don't make sense because my uncle says, well, we thought Kathy was dead, but Aunt B says we knew she was alive because she sent a postcard every time she had a child. So she had three children after she left Wisconsin, and that's the three of us, and they got postcards,
Hmm.
which incidentally, in the FOIA request, I found that there was a postcard sent to the police station telling them that Blanchie was dead and they needed to stop looking. It was like a condolences card,
Whoa.
Oh.
and
Wow.
it looks suspiciously like Kathy's handwriting. I'll just say that. I have no proof.
Wow.
That's
What did
conjecture.
you think when you saw that?
Well, I wasn't surprised because when I saw it, immediately called my cousin and was like, "You're not going to believe this." And I told her, and she was like, "We've suspected that Kathy might have known that he killed her sister. Nobody ever mentioned her name to the police, but we suspected that she knew, and we even suspected that maybe that's why she fled
Mm.
because she never went back to Wisconsin,
It
never
seems
until
it seems like in one of the papers I remember seeing the name Kathy
yeah, that
because
was
I
the
think you
link."
had warned me.
Mhm.
Wow.
That was the link between Blanchie and the douchebag was my mother. And he probably did have like wanna do things with Blanchie because he was a creep.
Well, supposedly, I don't know if you know, but supposedly
Yeah.
when Karen and Barbara got arrested, supposedly, they told the police that all the stuff that Larry did and said that I think it was Barbara. Larry wanted Barbara to go and talk to Blanchie. And when she saw Blanchie for the last time that she saw her, she was handcuffed
Mhm.
and was she gagged
She
as
was gagged
well?
with her pantyhose.
Oh my
Yes.
and
God.
and then heard a loud bang and then took the kids outside and then supposedly the next morning he was digging a grave or the next day like 3 a.m. or
In the
something
front
like
yard.
that. Yeah,
In the
in the front
front
yard.
yard. Like he
The
didn't even go
front
to the
freaking
backyard.
yard.
In the front
Yeah.
yard. So
Yeah.
and here's my thoughts. How scary is this dude that your neighbor saw you digging a hole and wasn't like, hey man, that's weird. Maybe there's
Yes. Yeah,
like
and even made the newspaper that I read said he made a comment. It looks like he's digging a grave. What the what the
why
fuck?
wouldn't you call the police then? I'm sorry, if I see my neighbor digging a hole in his front yard at 3 a.m. or whatever time it was, I'm going to have some questions.
Yeah.
Especially if you've seen this little girl and then all of a sudden you don't see this other little girl.
Yes, it's just so weird how that, like, I don't know, were they like thinking they were minding their own business. I don't know, but
I guess back in that day, people did mind their own business in some ways.
What
I
about
mind my
what if
business.
you are seeing someone dig a grave and you are like, there's no way someone's digging a grave. Like, there's no way that's what I'm seeing. Like, it
Right,
could be something like that too. Because I mean, why would somebody
Right.
do it in their front yard for one? You would think no
right.
way they would pick
That's
the
bizarre.
backyard.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Like,
it's super bizarre.
it could be something like that. I don't know, just devil's advocate, just thinking like that's how I would
Yeah,
think. Like, there's no way.
I
But
see
it
that.
was.
I think if it was me and I found out that there was a body there later, I would have tremendous guilt. But
Oh my gosh, yeah.
what I've concluded is he was digging the grave. She was already dead.
Oh yeah.
She was
Yeah.
already gone. There's nothing
No.
they could have done, regardless if they reported it to the police or not. She was
Yeah.
already gone at that point. He raped her and strangled her with her pantyhose.
Oh my God. What was the age difference between Kathy and Blanchie?
Blanchie was 24. So where's my? I have never done that math.
So Kathy was older, right?
Yes, was it 1975 when she was killed?
I thought it was 77, but I could be wrong.
77. That's right. Because my brother was born in 77.
Okay, yeah. So that's the strong
That's
suspicion as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So at that time, Kathy was 25. So it looks like Blanchie was a year younger than her.
Okay. Wow, that was very close in age.
And I wasn't like Larry and Barbara and Karen, weren't they like in their early 30s or something?
Yeah, he was born in the 40s and Kathy was born in the 50s. He was like 10 years older than her.
Okay. Do you remember? I cannot remember off the top of my head why Barbara and Karen got arrested. It was something to do with the kids, wasn't it? No, it was because of the 14-year-old.
It was the 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, they arrested them, and that's when they disclosed where Blanche's body was. I think they were
Hmm.
maybe looking for a deal, if I had to
Yeah.
guess.
And they
Um,
did. They because of cooperating, they didn't serve any time. But I did read, do you know if it's true that their kids, they were not given back their kids?
not, I do know that's true. My sisters told me that. She also told me that the kids sought them out and they were all really kind of fucked up.
Oh, I bet.
It wouldn't be.
Yeah.
My sister also said that Karen, last we spoke was back in September. Last we spoke about this, not last we spoke. Karen and Barbara, she thought they were still living.
I wonder if they are together.
I don't
If
know
Coming from someone who doesn't know the story that well, how did he get caught? Like, how did this survivor make it through?
which
What
one.
happened? Wasn't
the
there the
14-year-old,
yeah.
Um, so he had her tied up. From what I could tell from the FOIA request, he had her tied up in the closet, and she escaped and went to a payphone and called her mom and then called the police. And the police didn't really take her seriously. And then finally they took her seriously and brought in Karen and Barbara and started questioning them. And that's when it came out that they knew where Blanchie was. They said that Karen and on the police reports, Karen and Barbara had separate addresses, but
Oh.
the kids
oh,
were always together. They had separate addresses in Kenosha. Mhm.
wow.
But the kids were always together at one of their houses. And there was 4 kids. There were 3 girls and a boy. I do know that the boy has passed away. My sister told me that her other brother had passed. She didn't talk about it, and I didn't press. I
Yeah.
got the feeling maybe it was maybe suicide or drugs. I wasn't
Oh.
sure, and I didn't press.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, I read in the papers that when the police went back to the house after the 14-year-old was saved herself, that they found like feces in 3 different closets. And, that just tells me that they locked her in the closet whenever they wanted.
Yeah, and that she was used basically as their sex slave.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is just awful
That is
for a child.
awful.
For a child. And she was 14. And I just think like Kathy was 14 when she ran away with him.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me wonder what that dynamic was like.
Mi-
Mm.
I mean, manipulation and all these things.
Yeah. So I found out about the other women doing when I got the police reports and stuff from Kenosha. And the way I found out was really weird because there was like a little in the margin of like a legal pad, there was a little note with someone's name and it said dead slash alive question mark question mark. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Mean, right? So I
Yeah.
started
right.
digging around and I never could find anything. And then I heard the other podcast and was like, holy shit, that was real.
Are you talking about the oh
The
shoot.
one
The
in
little
Chicago,
yeah, the little girl, which was she 12, I believe?
it was 12. Yes. Yes. That wasn't Chicago. I believe that was in Wisconsin. Hmm.
Yeah, I have her name on the tip of my tongue because I read about two little girls that that he was suspected of, but the one little girl who was also 12, someone else admitted to murdering her
Yeah.
because she was stabbed to death and raped the same as I think one of the little girls was stabbed, whereas the other one was strangled.
Oh my God.
The
But they
one,
were both raped.
yeah. And I believe the one that was strangled was the one that was written down on the paper. It was almost like Kenosha police, like someone had heard of it and they had wondered if maybe he had something to do with it because of the nature of
Yeah.
the 10-year-old girl that escaped, you know? Yep.
And this
Yeah,
little
she was
girl
on her bike.
lived. Yeah.
Hmm.
And what was it? Either she was found or she lived not far from one of the locations where he had a residence at.
And then
So
there
there
was,
could be more victims out there, possibly, maybe.
I think so. What do you think, Dee?
I do. My sister doesn't think so, but I do. Just knowing like what psychopathy looks like,
Mm-hmm.
knowing how deviants are, knowing how sex offenders are, there's got to be more victims. There's
Just
Yeah.
got to.
the fact of him, well, newspapers can always misquote things, and we know for a fact that there's misinformation. But
Mhm.
supposedly him saying, I don't know how many times I've been married or how many kids I have, that tells me that in my mind that there could be more victims. But
He was definitely like it's like he said stuff like that. And when I read that, I thought he really is enjoying this. Like he's getting off on this type of stuff.
yeah, he enjoyed inflicting pain on all.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just disgusting. And then there was the girl, the woman, and I believe it was Chicago that disappeared that they found in a trunk,
Oh, wow.
Yes.
not a trunk of a car, but of like a trunk you put clothes in or
Oh,
your
Uh-huh.
stuff in. Yeah,
Yeah.
and she disappeared. They lived in this. I believe they lived in the same building, worked in the same place, and she disappeared.
let me
So
guess. She was probably like 12 to 14 years old, too.
she
No?
was a grown up. Yeah, she was
Oh.
grown. But what we know about sex offenders is they have preferences, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's clear he preferred girls 12 to 14.
Yeah.
If we're tracking along this line, sometimes if you don't have access to that, you'll take what you can get. And
Mm-hmm.
hence,
Maybe a young woman that looks young, very, very young.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've seen pictures of Blanchie right before she died. The picture in the paper didn't do her justice. She was quite beautiful and she looked very young. The picture in the paper was black and white. It was an old picture, but that didn't do her justice. She was lovely and she looked young. And I believe he probably started to covet her before Kathy ever left and maybe tried to get Kathy to bring her over or loop her
Yeah.
into that. And they were only a year apart. So imagine Kathy's 14 and she would have been around 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right in that age range that he really likes. I'm also
The
grateful that he was caught because my sister and her other two sisters could have grown up and been victims
Oh my
themselves.
gosh. For
And
sure.
so grateful again for the
Mhm.
14-year-old girl that we'll call her M. She escaped and because of that, my sister and her sisters weren't victimized by him in that way and didn't become his victims in that way.
Yeah. And I wonder if that really was her name though, because there was a name that you mentioned earlier, and I'm like, I wonder if the newspaper confused the names.
I don't know. I don't know that I'll ever meet her, but if I ever do, I just want to thank her.
She's
I
pretty
imagine
precious.
she really yeah. if it weren't for her. I just think of what could have happened.
If
And
she
I
ever listens to this, please reach out so we can connect you to Dee.
Yeah, for
Operation
sure.
Evil podcast at
and I've
gmail.com
read
or
that
Facebook.
she did not like just try once. Like from what I read, she tried multiple times
Just to run
to
away.
like yeah, and then like one of the neighbors had said that, they would like be driving in the car, pick her up, and then she would have the hell beat out of her after.
What
Yeah.
a strong girl.
hmm
She still
Yeah.
tried.
And her mother, in the reports, from what I read, her mother did not, because automatically some people may think, well, why did the mother give permission? Didn't, blah, blah, blah. But from what I read, the mother would visit
Yeah.
and the mother would call. And then it was like the little girl was told that her mother didn't want her anymore and that she gave her and her other kids up for adoption. So she was lied to. And then the mother was told that the little girl didn't want to come home.
I
So
guess
messed up.
police work was definitely different back then because I feel like they didn't take kidnapping as serious. We've covered that in the
Well,
past.
yeah.
They would
Remember,
wait so much time before
this
they
was
would even
before John
consider
Wash.
that. Yes. Yeah. I mean, things were done so different back then that if it happened today, it would definitely be investigated in a different way.
It
For
would.
sure.
It
Yeah, and
would.
it sounds like the media confused a lot of things, which probably led to a lot of that misinformation with that other episode.
Yeah.
I bet it
Yeah.
did. And you can't just fill in the blanks, journalists, people. You can't just do that.
Mhm. I think
There's real people, and we're talking to, one of those people that it may be just a story to you, but it's not to the person that it happened to.
Yeah,
it's not to my family. It's not just a,
exactly.
Exactly.
it's the worst trauma that ever happened to them in their lives.
Hmm.
And it's impacted them so profoundly. And it's not just a story. And it's important that people understand that, my grandmother wasn't lollygagging with polyamorous people. She wasn't taking rides from, she also had her own car. So why would she take rides from them? Like, it's just such a
Right.
weird situation. It's important that people know that, Blanchie didn't have a prior relationship that anybody knows of. The only person that claims they had a prior relationship is the douchebag, and we can't trust him.
Nope.
Right.
We do know that Kathy had the relationship with him because they have a child together,
Hmm.
my sister.
Yeah.
So, and the trauma my sister has had to overcome in her life is amazing. And she's not a podcast listener, but if she, like, I really admire and look up to her because even though she was adopted and she had a loving mom and everything, she carried that with her.
Absolutely.
And she's carried that with her whole life.
How old
She's
was she when
raised
she
six
was
kids.
adopted? Do you know?
She was 6.
Yeah, I mean, any longer, it could have been really bad for her.
And I think she has said that she's blocked a lot of it out and
Oh,
she
yeah.
doesn't want to remember. And I don't blame her.
Yeah.
Um, I don't blame her at all.
Hmm.
And but she's carried that with her. And she has said things like she's had times in her life where she's doesn't understand why she's angry, but she's angry. And I'm like, well, no shit. You've had this trauma that you can't remember and you don't know why you're angry, but your body knows why you're
Yeah.
angry
Your
because
body
your
doesn't
body keeps.
forget. Yeah, I love psychology, so I understand our brain will block things to make us
Protect you.
survive, to protect us,
Yeah.
but your body doesn't forget.
There's a whole book on trauma called The Body Keeps Score.
Hmm.
And that's absolutely true, 100% true. It comes with a workbook. Therapists use it for trauma as trauma therapy. And it's true. You get
Yeah,
people who have trauma at really young ages and they grow up and they have all the trauma impacts them in ways they don't even know. And they do things and they don't understand why they do them. They don't know that it's a trauma response
right.
for sure.
It's
And
no wonder why you got into this field.
right,
Like, yeah.
right. I originally got into social work to work with battered women because my mom had told me that she had had a partner that was abusive, and I didn't know that that's who it was.
Oh.
Uh,
Oh.
yeah, and I got into it because I really felt like I could be a voice for women who've been abused
Hmm.
and help them heal. And then as my career advanced, I got into, by the time I graduated, I figured out I couldn't work with battered women. It was too much. It was too hard. The go leave and come back. And I understand that dynamic and I respect that. And I know the multifaceted reasons why people go back to abusers, but I couldn't do it. So I switched and I became a clinical social worker and I've studied human behavior my entire career, 17 years.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That is
I would love to
fascinating.
pick your brain more.
Right. And just in case if
Um,
you guys don't know, with domestic situations, I think it's said that it's an average of like 7 attempts before they leave for good. And that's the most dangerous time
it
that
is.
they leave.
It's 7 attempts before they leave for good or before homicide.
Yes. Yeah. I
And
thought that was the case. Yeah.
yeah,
Ioka, you and I were just talking about this yesterday too.
Yeah, we were. Domestic
Yeah.
violence really bothers me too. It definitely. Yeah.
and I want to help victims of domestic violence. I just wanted to help them in a different way. I
Yeah.
wanted to help them heal through their emotional pain. I couldn't work like I originally wanted to work in a shelter and help them leave and stay away from their abusers. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized quickly that that wasn't the path for me. And I've counseled a lot of women, amazing women who have left abusers. I've counseled men who have left women abusers.
Yeah.
Because it's not just
Yeah.
women, it is a smaller percent, but men are sometimes abused too. And I have a lot of respect for people who leave situations like that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're trying to bring more attention to that and have more voices in that matter to maybe help others who may be going through that. Yeah.
But I really go back to say that I have a lot of respect for my sister. And I don't tell her that enough because she gets really uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of respect for her for the things she's had to overcome and the things that she experienced as a child. And she's an amazing, amazing woman.
Is she kind of like, oh, I'm no one special? Is she kind of like that or?
She is, well, she'll say I'm a badass, but she won't. If you say, yeah, you're a badass because you've survived all this, she'll be like, no, I'm just a badass. Like she's just really, and she is a badass. She's a little crazy, and I'm okay with that. We're all a little crazy, right?
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah.
But she's pretty awesome, and she's raised two amazing kids on her own. She lost a baby. Like
No.
she's amazing.
No.
She's
But
experienced a lot in her almost 50 years, and
she has people that doesn't know her that are proud of her.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. So I really respect her a lot and the things she went through and how she really overcome them and continues to like kick ass today. Yeah, for sure.
You can
Definitely.
just tell how proud you are of her.
I
Like
know. I love that.
you can totally see it.
She would probably say the same about me. I'm her baby sister. She'd probably say the same about me. But the truth is, like, I look up to her a great deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anything
Yes.
else in that story with that episode that you want to clear up that we
Oh my
didn't touch
gosh.
base on? Because I know you were, a little bothered with some things, wanting to clear the air.
Yeah, I was really uncomfortable with the fact that they only mentioned Kathy twice, and they didn't clarify that that was the link between the douchebag and Blanchie. They made it sound like Blanchie had a relationship with the douchebag. I wasn't there. I don't know that if that's true or not. I find it hard to believe, but it could have happened. But it bothered
See,
me.
I will tell you from what I researched, I did not think at all that she had a relationship with.
Not a consensual
Honestly,
one, right?
Mm-mm.
no, I thought, oh, I guess maybe they were family friends or something. But no, I did not.
Pitnas despised him.
Mm.
To this day, the Pitnas despise him. But before Blanchie even got murdered, they despised him. And they're Italian people. They don't forgive easily. That's 100% true.
Do you have any photographs of Blanchie that we could share?
I do not.
Okay.
My uncle does, and I won't be back up there until July.
Okay.
I
If you
can
ever
ask
get
him and
any
let know.
later and you want us to share it, we can
I
absolutely
will.
do that.
I for sure
Oh,
will,
for
because I'd
sure.
love to show some pictures other than the newspaper picture.
Right.
And he's
Yeah,
pictures of her, and yeah,
I would love to put a face with
right.
Blanchie. Her
Also,
name is just Blanchie.
It's
it
so
is.
cute. So
Yeah,
cute.
Yeah.
that was my grandmother's name too.
Oh,
So Was it short? Was it Blanchard or like was it short or just Blanchie?
It's Blanchie.
I love
That's so
that
cute.
name. I love
Yeah.
it.
It's pretty
It's
pretty cool.
unique. You don't hear that ever, I feel like.
Um, I think I also would want to say that when Kathy fled, my mom Kathy fled Wisconsin, she didn't just flee, but she fled and she changed her entire appearance. And it wasn't until I was 23 years old that I realized that my mother wasn't a natural blonde.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Never seen her with dark hair. And my uncle showed me a picture and I said, wow, is that one of my aunts? It looks just like my mom. He said, that is your mom. I said, no, my mom's blonde. He said, no, no, that's your mother. And I had no idea. So she didn't just leave, she changed her appearance. She got married, changed her name. Like it was, when I put the pieces together, I feel like it was evident to me that she did not want to be found. She
Mm-mm.
didn't return from 1977 to 2003. That's a really long time.
Yeah.
It's 26 years. She didn't return to Wisconsin.
Yeah, wow.
26 years. What kept her away?
That's
What
a good
kept her away?
question.
I wonder. And so I think that that is very suspicious. I also would say that anybody who's ever been victimized by him and survived, I really admire and respect, because as much as Karen and Barbara played a part in this, I don't know how old they were when he got his hooks in them. And I don't know what he did to them or what the context of that relationship was like. And I wonder if he made them do stuff they didn't want to, or he controlled them in ways. And though I'm angry that they took part and knew what happened to my aunt, I also have some degree of compassion for their situation because it was clear that he wasn't a good person.
Yeah. According to the papers, it was all that he controlled them and that he did get his hooks into them.
Yeah. So I don't like what they did. I hate what they did, but I also have some degree of compassion for what they had to survive with him and how they felt. I don't know what their role was, but maybe they felt they had to or they were forced to. And his other kids, I've never met his other two daughters, but I have a great deal of compassion for them as well because they lived through, and all the kids were very close in age. They weren't like years apart. They were, I believe some of them were even, at least two of them were the same age. So there were two of them pregnant at the same time.
I think there was like the child, those two that were the same age were maybe 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have a great deal of compassion and respect for what they had to go through and survive as well. Yeah. And I want to clarify that if anybody hears this and wants to write a letter to the Wisconsin Release Authority, let them know that he's a monster and he shouldn't be released.
That's a great thing to bring up.
Yeah.
He's up for parole this year and he should not ever breathe air outside of a prison.
He
Ever.
should not.
I don't know what he would do. He's probably in his 80s by now, but the fact that he's still alive really bothers me because I
Yeah, I'm
don't feel like
surprised no one got him in jail, because those are
Mhm.
kids basically that he would
I don't
abuse.
know. But if anybody hears this and wants to write a letter, if you could put the details of his prison and his like ID number and stuff, and if you don't have it, I can send it to you. If you could put
He's
that,
easily found on the internet too.
he absolutely is.
Yeah, if you want to
Um,
send us that information, we can absolutely put it out there. It won't
I
hurt.
will. 'Cause he, as much support as my family can get to keep him behind bars. It's just so important
Hmm.
um, that happens. I did go last summer to the place where they found her. We actually vacationed on Lake Michigan and just so happened to have an Airbnb in Kenosha where she was found. And I did go by it, and it wasn't the worst place. I don't know. She died a horrific death, but where she was buried was kind of quiet. I don't know how it was back in 77, but it was kind of quiet. It was near the lake. You could actually hear the water from where the front yard was. So I don't know. I kind of feel like at least there was some kind of peace for her while she was buried there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will. I know I'll reach out and I'll write to help
Thank you.
with your behalf on keeping him behind bars.
Yeah, it's important that if people could do that, that's really important. He shouldn't ever be free again. I don't care how old he is. I don't care how they feel, how much compassion he feels like he should get. I feel like he didn't show any compassion to the women and children he abused. He didn't
Yeah.
show any compassion to the people he murdered. And he doesn't deserve any type of compassionate release because of his age.
It's amazing to me how such awful people in this world will live as long as they do, and the good
Mhm.
ones are taken so young. It it bothers me so much. It's
Yeah,
not right. It's not right. Mm-mm.
yeah, it does. It bothers me a great deal too that
Yeah.
he's breathing air and taking up space and in this world, and good people aren't.
Yeah.
You don't know
Yeah.
who my aunt was she was a preschool teacher, man. She could have really helped a lot of kids and really impacted a lot of young lives, but she never had that opportunity because he took that from her. And he changed the course of the lives of so many people because of that.
He
And the
really
other people.
did. Yeah, and you're right. Your whole family was reshaped.
It was. It was. I'm convinced that it's because of him that my mom was never able to be like a loving, compassionate, caring parent, nurturing parent.
Hmm.
She was just too traumatized by him. So what he did didn't just impact her and her siblings, it impacted the way she parented, it impacted the way my uncle raised his kids, it impacted the way my other aunt raised her children, my other two aunts raised their children. So it wasn't just what he did, it didn't just impact one generation. It really, honest to God, ripples like a drop of water in a lake.
Yeah.
It just ripples.
And that doesn't always mean a bad thing either. Like it could be where, say your uncle parent was overly cautious with his kids. It could be
He is very, very protective
right.
of his children.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it motivated me to do what I do. Like literally, it just made me want to be someone who helps people heal,
Yeah.
And there was obviously my own trauma associated with growing up with a mom who experienced that type of stuff, but it made me and motivated me to help other people heal. And that's important to me that he not win in that way,
Yeah.
right? Right. He doesn't get to continue to impact further generations in our family. My other cousin is also a therapist for children.
No way.
And she is. She is 8 years younger than me, and she's a therapist. She is actually finishing up her dissertation. She's a total badass, but she and I have talked, and we both agree that like the impact he has on our family stops with our generation. It doesn't go any further.
Exactly.
He
If
doesn't.
anything, you guys are stronger and more badass than ever.
Right. He doesn't get to take anything else
Mm-mm.
from the us. He doesn't, he's taken enough and he doesn't get to take
He's
anything else.
he's lost that control a long time ago.
Hell yeah, I did.
Yep.
Yeah. We agreed that he just doesn't, I will not parent my child like my mom parented. She will not parent her children, though she didn't have a horrible childhood. She has two loving and great parents, but she was sheltered and like very protected. And there's some feelings about that. And
Mm.
that's because of him. And she's not going to do that to her kids. And he just doesn't get to, it stops with our generation. He doesn't get to do that anymore. And you know what?
Exactly.
He's going to eventually die, and we're going to still be here, and so will our children.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when he dies, nobody will remember him. When we pass, we'll have wonderful children to carry on our legacies. We'll have both worked in this field of social work, helping people heal from trauma. Like we have true legacies to move forward from this that he'll never have and he'll never be able to take.
I
Right
I
on.
I had no idea. Thank you so much for sharing this.
You're welcome.
You're such a
We re-
good soul
we really
anyway.
appreciate
Yeah.
this.
Thanks, Sayaka. I appreciate it. And you
Anytime.
guys are good souls too. And thank you for doing this podcast and just like honoring my family and taking the time to ask a family member instead of just filling in the blanks, and
Yeah.
honoring
Yeah.
my family in that way, because that's important to us too, that our family's honored in this and people understand that they were victims in this. too, and that they're still here and they still live this trauma.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
if
this is
there's
about
any
Blanchie and her family.
exactly, and if there's other survivors out there that have been affected by this horrible man that have something to say, I'm sure not only would we love to hear from you, but so would Dee. I mean, this conversation can continue if anyone wants to reach out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm open to that.
That would be great. Thank you so much for coming on. I guess we'll just end it here. All right. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. We have our Patreon episode coming out your way. And we should have done this in the beginning, but we have a new Patreon member that I want to give a shout out to, and that's
Oh
Melanie.
yeah, don't forget her.
You're our girl
Melanie.
anyway, but it's just official that you're part of our Patreon community too. So thank you so much for supporting us. It means the world to us, like you have no idea. A Patreon member, that link is always in the show notes as well. There's different tiers you can choose from, and we have a good 20 plus, nearing 30 bonus episodes on there that you can listen to. That's ready to go. Other than that, we will keep you posted on our Facebook, and I don't know. That's all we got. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye. Thanks again, Dee.